Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Friends List. We have a very special episode today because we have our very first external non-Polygon staffer guest on Friends List. We are very pleased to be joined by Kenneth Yeung, who is the lead programmer on a game called Super Time Force. Welcome, Kenneth.
Thank you. How's it going?
It is going very, very well. Congratulations on the launch of the game. It is, correct me if I'm wrong, in the wild today, or is that tomorrow?
It is tomorrow, but
Tomorrow.
reviews and embargo were lifted today, so there's a lot of stuff going on online right now, and things are kind of crazy. But
Yeah, it seems the first response seems very positive, which has got to be exciting for you guys.
for sure,
How long has this road been for you?
it's kind of hard to say. I guess the original idea of the game started around 2011 out of a game jam. But we really didn't start working full time on the game until about 2012. So it's been about 2 years plus a bit.
Hmm.
So it's been a decently long road, but not too bad.
And I know, the game obviously has very complex time travel-y concepts and mechanics, which are very hard to put into words. So I'm not going to do that right now. But I know that the game has gone through various changes throughout its history. How far would you say it is from where it started to where it is now?
Um, it's changed quite a bit, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that anytime you deal with time travel, it's gonna rack people's brains, and it's gonna be pretty confusing. Um, so we really wanted to make sure that the idea and the concept of the game was something that anyone could grasp, and it wasn't going to be this far off, mind-bending intellectual thing. So we really took to heart a lot of the feedback that we got anytime we showed the game at an event like PAX. We showed it at PAX for about, I think, 2 years in a row. And each time we came back with some pretty drastic feedback that resulted in some pretty significant design changes. So definitely the game has gone through some significant, changes in direction. But I think they're all for the better.
Sure. Now, obviously, you guys are exclusive on Microsoft platforms, at least on the console side. It's on Xbox 360 and Xbox One. I'm curious how that was working with Microsoft. It feels like in recent years, they did somewhat get a little bit leapfrogged on the indie side by Sony. Is that the impression that you got, that they were sort of trying to revive the idea that like Microsoft should be owning that indie space on consoles?
Um, it's hard to say. I guess for us, like, we've always had a really strong relationship with Microsoft. So we're always supportive of what they do. And I
Hmm.
know as a studio, Microsoft has been very supportive of us early on. In fact, probably one of the big reasons Super Time Force was made was because Microsoft, and specifically Chris Charla, who right now is running the ID at Xbox program, they sort of took notice of the game, and were pretty much the reason why we decided to turn the game into a full product. So I think when you have people like Chris Charla heading up the ID at Xbox program, he's definitely a person who's all about the games. He's always on the he's always on the ball, and so we're pretty optimistic about what Microsoft has in store for ID at Xbox. I know it's still pretty early on,
Hmm.
and it always takes a while for any sort of platform to sort of get its footing. You could say the same about Xbox Live Arcade and PSN at the beginning. It took a while, and I think that's also another thing that we're excited about, the fact that Super Time Force is one of the early games to appear on the ID at Xbox program.
Sure.
Because I think when you're one of the early games, it helps sort of shape the landscape of what that scene is going to look like eventually. So that's why we're pretty excited about how things are going
Hmm.
right
I mean, it does seem right now that Xbox One is, I would say, maybe a little bit barren. I know a lot of people that probably bought Xbox Ones in the past are desperate for software, so that's got to be exciting for you guys to be one of the first indie games released on the platform.
now.
Um, I'm curious. So, with this introduction of ID at Xbox, what would you say is sort of the biggest change that you see on the developer side that makes it better for developers trying to bring their indie games to Xbox and Microsoft consoles?
Well, a big thing, I guess, is that there's a lot of outreach. Like the program really reaches out to indies, and the fact that they give free development kits anyone who signs up, which is huge. One of the barriers to entry for anybody developing a game on consoles is the huge cost of getting on board and getting the development kits. And on top of that, their tech support is top notch. They respond to everything instantly. So there's a lot of good things to be said about the program. And you know, the first time I got the impression of how awesome it was at the ID at Xbox event at GDC. I think it was one of the first times that they showcased all of the current games lined up for it, and I don't know, I was really impressed with what I saw because it was you kind of got to see the spectrum of the scope of games. Like you have really small games. I know Nut Jitsu came out
Hmm.
recently, and
Yeah.
that's a really fantastic, tight little, app. But it works really well on the Xbox One. The fact that you can snap the game and continue playing it while you're, watching Netflix. So it's really great to see that there's such a diversity of games, which is something that you probably didn't see in the last generation, and that's something I'm really excited about.
Yeah, for sure. Some developers have mentioned one of I think the general consensus is that it's definitely a huge step in the right direction. I don't know how you guys feel about parity, launch parity, or anything like that. That's the one thing I think a few developers have mentioned is a sticking point for them, preventing them from bringing games to ID at Xbox. Is that a concern for you guys? Obviously, you have exclusivity, at least with Super Time Force. Is that something that made you maybe think about it for below or anything like that?
Um, I think for us, it probably doesn't affect us too much. I
Hmm.
mean, we're still able to sort of take the approach that we wanted to take for this game. Um, but it's understandable about the concerns of the parity. But all of these things are sort of trying to. I don't know. I guess they're trying to do the best thing for the games as possible, and sometimes it takes a while to figure out how that works, or it's hard to say. But I
Sure.
guess I guess for me, there's not much comment on my end.
Sure.
That's more a businessy question for Nathan rather than
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. Out of curiosity, I don't know if you've done any, looked at Sony or the services or anything like that. Is there anything that you think Microsoft could adopt of what Sony's doing, or vice versa? Sony could adopt of like what ID at Xbox is doing to sort of make indie games more prevalent.
Um, I guess the big thing is I know Sony sort of reached out to indies a bit earlier on.
Hmm.
Um, they started that a bit with on the PlayStation 3 and sort of had a head start on that on the PS4. So, if there was one thing that Microsoft, they were probably a little bit late on the gun, but you know, you have to applaud them for trying to do the right thing and taking things in the right direction. So we're pretty excited.
Sure, it does seem like Microsoft is very aware of their fan base and what their fan base is looking for, and certain things that their fan base might not be looking for, and they're certainly willing to shift priority. We heard about the Connect news today that consoles will be sold as Connect optional.
Mhm.
Um, that sort of flexibility, it seems like, is a bit reactionary, at least from our perspective. Insofar, I mean, it's good news that they're willing to change, but it does feel like it's a pretty serious console war going on right now, where it feels like a throwback to Nintendo and Sega at
Yeah,
this point.
exactly. A lot of mud is being slung back and forth, which
That's exciting. Is that
yeah, it's
exciting
kind
to
of
you?
exciting.
Like,
Yeah,
it's been so long since we've had like a legit fight. It's always, whatever. You have Halo, we have Killzone,
yeah.
whatever.
We
But
have Mode
no,
7, we have blast processing. Love that.
it is very heated. Anything sort of as a last thoughts on Super Time Force? What would you like people to know? What would you say to convince people to go out and get this game?
Um,
Pressure's on.
if you like fun, then play Super Time Force.
Wow, you spent a while on that, right? Now,
Well,
I
no.
will say I played it last night, and not only is it like fun to play, the writing is like tremendous. It's a
Yeah,
hilarious game.
yeah.
Definitely feels like the spirit of Cappy is in this title, and I don't know if if you have a feeling as to like what makes a Cappy game, but I feel like a fun, or like, I wouldn't say lighthearted because certainly Below is a little bit darker, but there's like a very unique air to your guys' games.
Yeah, definitely. Somebody on Twitter mentioned that they felt Super Time Force was Cappy Games the game, which I thought was a very succinct way of putting it. But it's true, you know, here at Cappy, we don't take things too seriously. We're very fun. We joke around all the time. So we're glad that we're able to sort of shove all that into a single game and push it out there, and, you know, be allowed to do that.
Sure. Yeah, and real quick, anything you could say about Below or anything else you're working on to get people excited?
Well, you're probably going to hear a bit more about Below at E3. So, you know, keep your ear tuned to that. I can't say much else other than that. But, you know, Super Time Force is here. It's out. The wait has been quite a while, so hope everybody enjoys it.
Cool. Well, Kenneth, thank you so much for joining us on Friends List. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks a lot for having me.
So next up, we have a new segment on the show, which will introduce user comments. We look through the user comments from yesterday's episode, which was all about Unreal Tournament, and we're going to read some of them to you. Daniel commented, "So I'm longing for a game with proper movement and hit scan weapons, and away with all the leveling up BS and loadouts and 6 different weapons with all the intricate differences that end up being hardly relevant anyway. Also shot combos." Definitely good point there. I think a lot of people are kind of dying for a throwback style first-person shooter. Buckling Swashes said, "For me, I think the big draw for a new Unreal Tournament is modding and community-driven aspects. Modding is something that you simply don't see much of in high-profile games anymore." Definitely true, especially in console games. You really never see modding. So you know, it's good to return to that, at least somewhat. We don't know the extent of how much modding will be able to affect this game, but they are saying from the gate it's a big part of it. And the last comment of the day comes from AGGH, which I'm going to pronounce it Og. "If people only wanted progression-based low-skill shooters, Counter-Strike Go would have died ages ago. It's really sad that people have to ask whether a skill-based shooter with dev-supported modding is something people really want." He's right. Counter-Strike Go has been a success. Hard to say how many of these games the market can support and they can still make money with them. But I think CSGO is a very good example of one way in which it was a success. And that'll do it for this episode of Friends List. Thanks so much for watching. We are here every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to post your comments in this post, and we'll look at them for future episodes. Thanks so much for watching. Good night and good luck. I made that up.